If you're divorcing a narcissist and it feels like your children are being pulled into the conflict, I want you to understand something very important. You are not imagining it, and you're not overreacting, because one of the most painful realities of narcissistic divorce is that children often become part of the control dynamic. The narcissist doesn't care if the children are emotionally healthy or protected. Children are simply leverage to the narcissist. They're emotional leverage, psychological leverage, even legal leverage. And if you don't understand what's happening, you can easily get pulled into reacting emotionally in ways that unintentionally make things worse. Today, I want to talk about how narcissists use children to maintain control during divorce and the biggest mistakes emotionally overwhelmed parents make, and how to protect your children without becoming emotionally consumed by the dynamic yourself. Let's break this down into 3 parts. First, why narcissists involve children in the conflict. Second, the biggest mistake loving parents make when this starts happening. And third, how to create emotional safety and contrast for your children over time. So first, why do narcissists involve children in the divorce dynamic at all? Because children create emotional access, and narcissists often struggle deeply with losing control over the family structure after separation. When they can no longer control you directly through the marriage, they often look for another pathway to influence your emotional state, and children become the most powerful pathway available. This can show up in many ways: disparaging you to the children, creating loyalty conflicts, undermining your authority, using the children to gather information, making parenting exchanges emotionally chaotic, or positioning themselves as the victim, or subtly encouraging the children to distrust or reject you. And what makes this so painful is that loving parents naturally react emotionally when they see their children being negatively affected. That reaction is understandable, but it can also pull you deeper into the conflict. This is one of the biggest things I help women navigate in coaching, because once children become emotionally entangled in the narcissistic dynamic, many parents become completely consumed, trying to correct the narrative, defend themselves, protect the children emotionally, and regain control over the situation. But often, the more emotionally reactive the parent becomes, the more unstable the entire environment starts feeling for the children. And narcissists frequently exploit that instability. I've seen this dynamic countless times. A child repeats something hurtful, like, "Dad says you only care about money," or "Mom says you broke up the family. Dad says you're crazy." Understandably, the parent feels devastated. They want to correct the lie, defend themselves, or explain the truth immediately. But children don't process conflict the way adults do. Children absorb emotional atmosphere more than explanations. And when they feel caught between parents emotionally, it creates enormous internal stress for them. Now, let's talk about the second piece, the biggest mistake loving parents make when children become part of the narcissistic dynamic. And again, I say this with so much compassion, because these reactions usually come from heartbreak and fear and the desperation to protect your child. One major mistake is emotionally counterattacking the other parent to the child. I understand why parents do this, because when you're being misrepresented, falsely accused, or emotionally undermined, you desperately want your child to understand the truth. But children experience attacks on the other parent as attacks on part of themselves, because they identify with both parents psychologically. I often explain it this way: if you tell a child your father's a terrible person, the child often hears, "Half of me is terrible." And that creates deep emotional conflict internally. Another mistake is interrogating children after parenting time, trying to gather information, trying to figure out what was said, trying to manage the narrative. But this often increases the child's anxiety and sense of emotional pressure. Another major mistake is making the child emotionally responsible for your pain, even unintentionally. Children should not feel like they must emotionally protect either parent. Now, let's talk about the third piece. How do you actually protect your children in this situation? And honestly, this is where the real long game begins. Because protection does not usually happen through one conversation. It happens through emotional consistency over time. First, focus on creating emotional safety instead of controlling the narrative. Children need predictability, calm, emotional steadiness, and permission to love both parents without guilt. Second, validate feelings without escalating conflict. Instead of, "That's not true, your father is lying," try this. "I can understand why that would feel confusing." That creates safety without forcing the child into emotional alignment. Third, stop trying to win emotionally through the child. This is incredibly important. Your child is not the courtroom, not the jury, not the emotional referee. And once parents stop trying to emotionally convince the child of who is right, the pressure on the child often decreases dramatically. And finally, focus on creating contrast, not through speeches, through patterns of behavior. Children notice who is calm, who is safe, who is emotionally consistent, who creates stability, and who creates chaos. They might not fully understand it in the moment, but over time they notice. This is another area where support matters enormously, because watching your child become emotionally entangled in the narcissistic dynamic is one of the most painful parts of high conflict divorce. Many women need help staying emotionally grounded enough to avoid reacting from fear or heartbreak or desperation. A huge part of my coaching is helping women protect both their children and themselves emotionally while navigating these incredibly difficult dynamics. And here's what starts to change when you shift your approach. You stop chasing the narrative. You stop pulling children into adult conflict. You stop organizing your parenting around fear. And your children begin experiencing you as emotionally safer and more stable, even during conflict. That matters more than people realize. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Narcissists often use children as emotional leverage during divorce because children create ongoing access and control. But one of the most powerful things you can do is stop emotionally competing for your child's loyalty and instead focus on creating emotional safety and consistency over time. That's what children remember. If this is something you're facing and you'd like support navigating it strategically, you can book a breakthrough call with me. There's a link in the description below where you can get right on my calendar. And if this resonated with you, I'd really encourage you to watch my video called How Narcissists Turn Co-Parenting into Ongoing Control. Because once you understand the control dynamic underneath many co-parenting conflicts, the entire situation starts making much more sense emotionally. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And remember, you don't have to figure this out alone.